Have you ever heard of a divorce agreement? To explain it simply, it is a contract that documents the promises made regarding property division, alimony, custody, child support, etc. at the time of divorce. If the payment of alimony and child support described in those documents is delayed, payment can be sought in a divorce lawsuit. This time, I used this to carry out a certain review plan for my husband, who said, "Let's get a divorce," after the affair was discovered. I'm Neola, and I'm a 32-year-old part-time housewife. I have been married to my husband, Orlando, for 3 years. I met him at a party when I was 27 years old and was invited by my friend. At that time, I had no desire to get married, and it was a joint party that I reluctantly participated in to match the number of people. I was attracted to Orlando's cheerful and easygoing personality and good talk, and we exchanged contact information later that day. We went out to play together several times and then started dating. 2 years later, he proposed to me, saying, "I'll make you happy for the rest of my life." I had no desire to get married, but I thought I would be able to build a wonderful family with him, so I got married. At the beginning of our marriage, he was very kind, and I loved him so much that we went out together every weekend. Even though I got married, I was teased sometimes for being so lovey-dovey. However, about a year after we got married, our relationship gradually changed. The cause is a child. Orlando is a child lover and has been saying since the beginning of their marriage, "I want to have children as soon as possible." I also wanted to have a child with Orlando by the age of 30, but we couldn't have a child even after a year of marriage. Since then, Orlando has been saying, "My mom gave birth to 3 children. My sister is going to have a second child," as if I was the cause. When I ask, "Do you want to say this is my fault?" he usually says, "Nobody says you're bad, right?" I was also irritated by his attitude and responded by saying, "I'm not saying it too far." Since we would get into fights together, he was spending more time going out by himself and our time going out less often on weekends. Even so, he and I both wanted to have children, and we continued to act. Even after 2 years of marriage, we couldn't have children. One day, my husband recommended me to an outpatient infertility clinic. I decided to go to an infertility outpatient clinic in the hope that if I could find out the cause and have a child, my marital relationship would improve. As a result, I found out that the cause seemed to be the poor quality of my eggs, and that it was harder for me to get pregnant than a normal woman. On the way home, I apologized to my husband. I myself was shocked when the doctor told me directly that I was the cause. Even my husband must have been shocked, and I felt sorry for my child-loving husband for having difficulty conceiving him. "I am sorry. You love children, but..." I thought that if I apologized tearfully, my husband would comfort me. However, instead of comforting me, he did not say anything, but only sighed and drove silently. And when I arrived home, he just said, "I'm going to come out for a minute," and left the house. In addition to the shock of the diagnosis, I was shocked that my husband didn't say anything, so I couldn't get anything. I made dinner for him when he came home. But that day, my husband didn't come home at dinner time. Instead, he got drunk and came home in the middle of the night. Over the years, the couple's time and conversations have decreased, but I think the events of this day were decisive. He began to come home late at night almost every day, and gradually he and I began to sleep separately. Even on weekends, my husband went out without saying anything, and it was late at night when he came back. If I ask, "Are you busy?" and he coldly says, "You know when you see it." And if I'm worried and say, "Aren't you drinking too much? Do you want to tell me I'm playing, because unlike you, my body doesn't have any problems?" It was a day when he was sarcastic. Even so, I continued to undergo infertility treatment, such as eating a diet that makes it easy to get pregnant, building my body, and going to the hospital. He was uncooperative and completely rejected IVF, which was the most likely, saying it was, "I don't want to go." One day, about a year after the discovery of infertility, I got a message from him saying, "I'm going to the restaurant at 7 p.m. today." Of course, I didn't make any promises to him. Perhaps this message was supposed to be sent by my husband to another woman, and he accidentally sent it to me. I come home late every day, and on holidays, I go out early in the morning and come back late at night. I was faintly aware of his affair partner and he stayed overnight, and I was like, I knew it. When I replied to him, "You have a good person," it was immediately read and passed through. And the next day, when he came home in the morning, he said to me, "You are a sarcastic woman, and I am tired of your personality." When I asked, "Do you want to divorce?" my husband didn't feel bad and said, "Oh, that's right," and went to work immediately. It was a shock whether it was or not. Come to think of it, he and I haven't done anything like a couple for a year. I thought that the relationship between the husband and wife could not be repaired, and that divorce was the only thing left. If that's the case, I decided to visit a divorce lawyer's office that I had been researching online since my husband's accidental bombing message came yesterday. The lawyer in charge was a woman and close in age, so it was easy to talk to her. I was able to talk about everything from my relationship with my husband to how I found my husband's affair, and my own fertility problems. My lawyer told me, "If you don't have children, the important thing is to divide your property." I go home from the lawyer's office and put my things in a cardboard box and the ones I don't need in the trash. The theme park headgear we went to with the two of us and matching mugs. I couldn't move my heart at all to the things that I should have cherished so much. When I was silently packing, my husband, who came home in the evening unusually, he said, "I'm not going home today, so pack your bags by the end of today." I said, "I'm doing it now, and I'm going to leave today as you wish." And this. I said, "Read it carefully and sign it, and when you're done, send it here." I gave my husband a piece of paper and an envelope with the address of a lawyer's office. As I told my husband, I finished packing that day and went back to my parents' house. My parents were very surprised when they found out about the situation, but they respected my decision. Living with understanding parents. I was very comfortable living at my parents' house, where I was not blamed for infertility and I was not sarcastic. About 2 months after I returned to my parents' house, I was contacted by a lawyer. It was the contact I had been waiting for. A piece of paper signed by my husband arrived at the office. The paper in this example is a divorce agreement. There is to be me in the name of the house that the two of us bought as a division of property. If you sell your house without permission, you will be responsible for the cost of purchasing a new house. To pay for my fertility treatment for the next 20 years as alimony for infidelity. It is written that if I become pregnant during the 20-year period, you will pay child support instead of medical expenses. I know his habit of not reading fine print at all, so I dare to say that the divorce agreement was a normal size, and the terms of presentation were in small print. He must have signed the agreement without reading it carefully. However, he did not know that, sold the house and was probably trying to live happily with an affair partner with the money. My lawyer informed me of a violation of the agreement, and he contacted me in an impatient manner. "Hey, Neola. Your lawyer has contacted me to pay for your new house." "What's that?" "I don't know about divorce agreements." Sure enough, he hadn't read the divorce agreement I gave him at all. I said, "Didn't I tell you to read it carefully and sign it? Didn't you read it properly?" You can't read me in such fine print, you fooled me. I won't pay, and he yelled. I was disgusted with him, and I said, it's your fault that you didn't read it properly even though I said it. I said, you're the one who signed it, so make sure you pay it, and hung up. However, he seemed to be unable to pay, and a divorce settlement was held. I had a divorce agreement, which was already signed by him, that I had drawn up with my lawyer. I was looking forward to divorce mediation and went there in an exciting mood, but for some reason he appeared very tired. The mediator asked me why he and I had separated, and asked us if we could get back together through repeated discussions. I told them that I had the cause of infertility, and that he had a cold attitude and an affair after it was discovered. Even after the discovery of infertility, I worked on treatment, but my husband did not cooperate at all. He said as a husband, I could not bear the pressure from my wife to have children. I was exhausted from work and I was mentally exhausted. I didn't know what to do because I thought I couldn't have children even if I tried, he retorted. When questioned by the mediator about the affair, he replied, I was serious with her, not for fun. If my wife couldn't have children, I wanted to have children with her. In the end, the mediator sighed. Of course, divorce mediation is a complete victory for me. As stated in the agreement, he was ordered to pay for the purchase of a new house, fertility treatment, or child support. I will never forget the funny look of regret on his face at that time. However, it was until that day that he was frustrated. The day after the payment to me was decided, his affair partner acted unexpectedly. After divorcing me, my husband was planning to sell his house, remarry his affair partner, and buy a new house. When I told his affair partner about it, she said, I can't get married because I have a sick mother. He was told, I don't want to bother you because I'm going to borrow money to pay for my mother's treatment. He was going to marry her, so he gave up his new house and gave her most of the money he had to live in her apartment. However, he was obliged to pay due to mediation. When he sent a message to her about it, he lost contact with her while it was being read. Since then, there has been no phone or message, and the apartment where we lived is in a shell state. He lost his home, his girlfriend, his savings, and cash all at once, and he became mentally ill. As a result, he couldn't get a job and was forced to take sick leave, and he was forced to retire. These are things that I learned from a pathetic message from my ex-husband who came to me about half a year after the mediation. He talked about his situation and said, I want to start over with you. I was happy even if we didn't have children, I want to go back to those days. He also sent me a message saying, please help me. But I have no intention of getting back together with him. Because now I am the happiest I've ever been. Soon after separating from my husband, I used my good English skills to get a job at a foreign-affiliated insurance company. Every day was a series of new experiences, and I was doing my job, and I was spending fulfilling days independent from my parents' house. And just as I started receiving messages from him, I was introduced to a certain man by my boss, who said, there is a wonderful person. He is a super elite graduate of a famous university, and at the young age of 35, he seems to be a candidate for future executives. Not only that, but as a returnee, he is basically a lady first and a good talker. I was attracted to him, and I talked about divorce and infertility. He took it seriously and said, it's best for the two of you to live happily, but if you want a child, I'll do my best to help. He said. I decided to marry him and lived with him in his apartment for about half a year, and I plan to visit the new apartment next time. The reason is that his apartment will be small in the future. This is because the fertility treatment I received with my ex-husband's money was successful, and I was able to conceive my new partner's child. I'm 9 weeks pregnant, and he suggested that we move out and welcome a new life in a nice new house before my belly gets bigger. I think I've met a really nice person. Thanks to my ex-husband's mistaken message and divorced me, I was able to meet him and get pregnant with my child. I will be able to live happily in a nice apartment from now on. In that sense, maybe I should be grateful to my ex-husband. He broke up with me and lost everything. My ex-husband is still whining a year after the mediation, but every time I see it, I feel a sense of superiority. I haven't told my ex-husband about my latest situation at all. If this child is born, will I send a photo of my current husband and the three of us to despair? Or I'm wondering if I should keep informing them because I want to continue to indulge in a sense of superiority. That may be my only problem right now.